Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are listening to the Modern Customer Podcast, and I am your host, Blake Morgan. I'm recording this the last week of May, and there's a lot going on this week. A lot of people are graduating. It's my son's second birthday. It is my birthday as well, almost on the same day, and we're having a joint birthday party. So that is what we're doing. But right now, I have a really great show for you on the Modern Customer Podcast. My guest today is Chris Chumley, the President and Chief Operations Officer of CampusLogic. Chris is the leader of product operations, and he manages product management, development, implementation, and customer success. He's responsible for driving the direction and development of the CampusLogic financial services platform. CampusLogic has nearly 800 colleges and universities on their platform and top industry awards year over year. Today, Chris and I are talking about customer experience. We're talking about how startups can lead with customer experience and grow and be successful. We're talking about the role of the operations officer in customer experience, and we're helping you figure out how to build an ROI model to show the value of customer experience. Let's get to this episode. I know you'll enjoy our conversation. Chris, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. It's been such a big season for you guys. I'm so happy to be here, especially because I got to be with you guys recently in Arizona. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. Yeah, it was great to host you in Arizona.
So for my audience and our viewers out there that don't know you, don't know CampusLogic, can you just kind of tell the story of the company and how you came into this role as head of operations?
Yeah, so CampusLogic has been around for about 8 years. We're a software as a service business. Our customers are colleges and universities. So we saw a big problem. It's still a big problem, but the problem we started down the road of trying to fix back in 2013 was that the biggest barrier to students being able to get their degree was actually the friction they found in trying to fund it. So trying to figure out how to pay for school. And while there were money and programs available, the experience that students were having was antiquated. It was paper-based. It was manual. So we started building solutions that we sell to schools, and we always say we help schools change lives. So the schools are the ones actually doing the work, but using our tools to improve their student experience, to remove those friction points as they figure out how to pay for school.
So one of the things I learned from you and your team as I got to know you guys in the past few months is that many schools, universities, which are businesses really, don't see students as customers. And this is a big controversy. When I started researching and obviously prepping for the talk I gave to your audience, that there's no agreement on what are we actually doing here. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on the role of the university. Is the student a customer or not? And what does that mean?
Yeah, and it has been a big debate in the industry. I think because of the fact that they're educating the students in the classroom, they tend not to think about the fact that they are actually providing a myriad of services to the student, across the whole student journey. So we would say, CampusLogic would say, your students most definitely are your customers, and that the customer experience or the student experience is really important, and it makes a big difference in how they ultimately perform in the classroom and get to their ultimate goal of getting a degree. So yeah, they are in the service industry, whether they want to admit it or not, and they need to figure out how to remove the friction in the process for the students.
Yeah, and so when I was meeting with and working with you guys and thinking about the customer experience of the student in the university, I was thinking back to my own experience, like so many years ago, 20 years ago, of applying for college, getting in, the financial part of it. Where does the breakdown happen for the student in the process? Like, is there one major offender that you've noticed?
Well, for us, we think the major offender is what has typically been referred to as financial aid. So the process of applying for financial aid, finding scholarships, understanding how you're going to pay for your education, that's where students get stuck. Schools do a really good job of attracting students, recruiting students, providing a good experience from kind of a student life perspective. But financial aid is complicated, and most students and parents are navigating it for the first time. Or in the case of the parents, they maybe haven't navigated the process in a long time. And so you're dealing with a customer that is naive to this complicated process. So you got really complicated process and a naive or inexperienced customer, and so they need help to get through that journey.
And so here comes along CampusLogic. You guys obviously see this glaring issue across the country, that there's a breakdown somewhere where a young person says, yeah, I want to go to college. Can I afford it? Somewhere there is a breakdown. CampusLogic comes around 8 years ago. What was the first thing you wanted to solve when you guys really got started?
The first thing we wanted to do is we wanted to make it simple, mobile, and personalized. And so we started with all of the paper that was being collected from the student in the financial aid process. So how could we make it a digital experience? After a student fills out the financial aid application, most schools then it became completely paper-based. And so what we were replacing usually was paper and pencil, filling out forms, turning those forms in, finding out you didn't complete it properly or didn't complete all of it, and then having to chase the student to get the information that was necessary. So that was the first place we started. We call it unlocking complexity. So how could we use technology to just digitize the process and make it streamlined, so that the school got complete and accurate information the first time? And so that was the first set of products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. So we're thinking about 2012 or 2014. So, we have these tools. Schools, the university industry sometimes seems to be the last adopter of technology. Was it hard to sell the product? Because I understand you guys have it in over 800 schools in America now. Was it hard to get started?
Yeah, like any new idea, and I think when you go into an industry that's well established, getting people on board with, no, we really can do this self-service. Like, I think that was the biggest doubt that we would get is, oh, the students won't use this. And then we had schools where 1,000 students signed up and used the product and got through the process in the first 24 hours, and the school was amazed. What they didn't appreciate is that every area of our life now has become self-service, and I can do it from my phone. And so their students were more digitally prepared than they thought they were.
So a lot of our listeners and viewers, I'm sure, tune into this podcast, Chris, to learn, like, if you have a good idea, if you have a startup, how do you get it into the hands of hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people? Very few succeed. So many startups fail. What is it that you guys did differently? And of course, always thinking with the customer experience lens, what is it that you did different that allowed you to actually succeed and then scale and grow?
So I think the focus on the customer is really important. So we have 7 core values in the company. One of them is we love our customers and they know it. And to me, that last part, they know it, is most important. A lot of companies say they're customer centric or say they build products for customers, but the customers don't feel it, they don't see it. So one of the things I think that made us really successful in the beginning, because we were trying to convince schools to move from the way it is to the way it could be, was being able to get really in depth into their world, really understanding what they were going through, really understanding their pain points, and then incorporating that feedback into everything that we did was really key. And then what I tell other startup founders is that you have to find who everybody talks about early adopters, but what I think you really need are your early evangelists. You need the people that not only get your product and see the solution, but they're willing to talk about it. And so if you can show them value, and we approach student experience from the perspective of everybody at a school will say that student experience is important. They believe that. But they won't always release budget to buy a solution for that. So I always say they won't spend money on it. So what we did was we tried to show them the return on investment that they would get from a better student experience, in terms of their pain points. So yes, we're making life better for the student. The student gets their financial aid. They can stay in school. But can we show a school that they'll need, less staff, that they'll have fewer expenses, that their completion rates for financial aid will go up? So we would talk to them about the solution from their perspective, from their pain points, and how improving their customer experience would actually make that life better for their staff.
So you hit on something that so many people come up to me and ask me about and struggle with, which is return on investment. So we come in, usually customer experience, when things are broken. We are the helpers. We are the emergency people, on the ground trying to fix things. It's not always easy to say, hey, yeah, if you invest in making people's lives easier and better, you will save money, you will make money. It's not always clear. Sometimes, like Amazon, it's just a leap of faith. Hey, if we do the right thing, the money will come. So how did you early on illustrate that ROI to universities when it's not easy to show?
Yeah, so part of it was, as we were out talking to them, we started with the problem, started with the pain point, and then tried to work with the customers in helping them identify how that was impacting their business. So just to give you a simple example, with a process that was really heavy in paper, a process where a student has to prove their income, prove how many people are in their household, et cetera. So we said, is this a painful process for you? They would say, well, yeah, we've got 8 people who are working with students on it. And so we worked with them side by side to come up with, well, what are the numbers for that pain? Let's put a number to the pain. And if we can move that number, then student experience has value. And so we actually started with the pain and the problem, tied it to the metrics that they cared about, and then showed how our solutions could move those metrics. And so that was, the ROI wasn't us just telling them what the ROI was. It was an ROI that was built with them and
so
using their numbers.
Yeah, put a number. It reminds me of going into the doctor's office. Like, put a number to your pain on a level of 1 to 10. Like, 10 is really bad, 1 is not bad at all.
Yeah.
I love that. So how did you even come up with that, starting with that pain? Like, how much does that pain cost you? What do you think? Like, how would you even sit next to the client and help them figure that out?
Yeah, some of it was trial and error, to be honest, because when you're a startup founder, or even if you're trying to launch something within a larger company, you already believe it. Like, you have faith in it. We knew from talking to students that they didn't like the financial aid process. So for us, it was intuitive. It was not based in numbers or reality. That if you made the process simpler, if you made the process mobile, if it was more personalized to the student, not a one-size-fits-all, that good things would come. It's like you said, with Amazon, you build it and it will get better. But because we needed the school to be able to get the budget to buy our solutions, that was where we ran into problems. You go out and you start selling to schools just based upon this, like, hey, this will make life better, and you find that you run into doubt, especially in those early days. If you're creating a new product category, you're going to run into a lot of doubt, and so that's what led us into the idea of trying to cooperatively build the ROI model with our customers directly, because while we could see it we could see the vision, we could see nirvana. They needed to be able to quantify it. And so I would say we just learned it in the early days after several times of showing demos where people would say, yeah, that's great, but I don't think it'll really have any impact for me. And so we had to change our tact.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it takes. It's really sitting next to the customer, next to the client, or even people are listening and watching next to your colleagues in other departments, and really starting to get together and share information, share data, look at numbers together. I think that is so important. It's something that so many struggle with. I want to switch gears at this point in the podcast and talk about your role as Chief Operating Officer. How would your role as COO, how does customer experience figure into what you do every day at CampusLogic?
Yeah, so part of it is, so I have responsibility for, we are a subscription business. So one of the most important numbers for me is how we're retaining customers. Customer retention is a big focus for us and always has been. We work in an industry where there are 6,000 schools in the country, 6,000
Wow.
Institutions of higher education, roughly. And so every single customer is precious in that size of a market. So as COO, I had two main responsibilities. One was product development. The other one was what we call customer success. So how can we onboard customers and have them have a good experience setting our products up? How can we continue to show them that value proposition that we promised during the sales process, and then help them get more and more value out of the product? So I spend my day focused on ultimately how do we help customers get the most from our products. And it starts with product development, but it actually continues on through our customer success teams. So as Chief of Operations, I'm focused with how do we, because if we retain customers, that's good for business, but also those customers in this size of industry are going to share that experience with others.
Absolutely.
And so that's been one of our most important drivers.
Absolutely. So when we think about the subscription model and we think about what's been happening in the last few years, did you see your numbers improve quite a lot during COVID because of this need to focus more on a paperless, remote situation?
Yeah, for sure. So, and we had customers say to us, we don't know how we would have kept operating during COVID if we hadn't purchased your solution. So yes, our retention numbers, which were already pretty good, did go up even more. But also we saw new bookings, new sales grow because now the world has changed. Now the world has seen that that they need digital solutions. They need to be able to operate in a remote world. So that's the basic need that they're seeing. But I also think the thing that COVID changed for higher education is the student experience and student well-being have moved to the forefront. And schools are seeing that academically prepared students who can totally be successful in the classroom may not be succeeding outside of the classroom. And if the institution is going to be concerned with the whole student, the whole customer, they need to broaden the breadth of services that they're providing. So the pandemic definitely changed a lot of perceptions where prior to that they would just say, well, they can come into the office. If they need help, they can just come to the financial aid office. And even before the pandemic, the last office anybody wanted to go to was the financial aid office. The students would prefer not to come to the office if they could avoid it. And so how can we help schools make it that kind of easy process?
So when you talk, Chris, about the whole customer, I mean, some of the things that come to my mind when you say that are maybe mental health, like how social are they being, how good do they feel? Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. And where we think there's huge opportunity in our industry is to focus more on those emotional needs of students, those need of belonging, of feeling connected. that's been the downside of the pandemic, is that loss of connection.
Right.
And so how can we partner with our schools on solutions that help drive that connection, that drive more emotional well-being for their students? Because ultimately, helping the students succeed is what's best for the institution also. It's their mission, for one, that's why they exist. But two, from a business perspective, um, the more students who achieve their academic goal or their academic objective, there's a virtuous impact on the institution also in many ways.
Yeah, it reminds me of so many of everybody listening to this podcast. There are things that impact their customer that have nothing to do with their product, but it does impact the customer experience. So that, I think, is very, very important what you just said, that you might sell a product like, let's say, bananas. Maybe you sell bananas, but if customers, don't have the peanut butter to put on the banana or something, then you're gonna have
Yeah.
problems. So, I mean, really, it's this trend that even I've been seeing about you're responsible to up-level the entire industry as a business now, and do things and think about things that might not even seem directly related. Just like how Airbnb recently, Brian Chesky, the CEO, said that the office is dead. And
Yeah.
he said his Airbnb employees can work from anywhere, and they will not take a hit to their salary. They can work in
Right.
Australia, in Africa, in China, in the US, and it doesn't matter. So even with the statement like that, that might not seem to have anything to do with what he sells, but it actually has everything to do with for his customer, because he's making a statement impacting many more people than just his employees.
Absolutely. Like, I think where those of us who work in and around customer experience will find that we've been really myopic a lot of times, worried about just the experience with our product or service. But as we zoom out and look at what are the trends or the other things impacting that customer, that's how we'll be successful. Is expanding our view, like zooming out a bit and saying, like, how can we impact what happens before they get to our experience and what happens after our experience, is, I think, yeah, that's a frontier that we all can innovate on.
Do you find, Chris, that your clients are very concerned with the notion that perhaps their universities don't have the weight that they used to, that maybe people don't even really need college as much as they did to just have a good life and be successful?
So yeah, I mean, I think the industry is in a state of transition. I think they're now alternatives in some fields, that maybe a college degree isn't necessary anymore. But I think as the industry changes the way it looks at itself to being more about learning in general, learning isn't going away, right? Maybe the four-year credential is going to adjust or change, or many experts in the industry talk about unbundling, right? Like breaking up the four-year degree into competencies or into individual learning opportunities. Higher ed's in the best position to do that, but they will have to look at themselves in a different light and see themselves as more of a service provider of education over the life of their student, and not just that 4-year period of time when they're trying to get a degree. And I think you're seeing some institutions moving that way, and I think as the industry evolves, those are the institutions that are gonna be successful.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, so many of us, we had college experiences that weren't so cookie cutter. Like, I studied
Yeah.
modern literature and the history of art and visual culture. What? But I was on the school newspaper. School newspaper ended up setting me on a trajectory of my entire life, my career, which was not something official. I just did it as a hobby. And I think there's a lot of people out there like me. I mean, what did you study in college?
So I have two psychology degrees, actually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I built software. Yeah, because I have two psychology degrees. But
Wow. Okay.
um, but, but yeah. So there's you're absolutely right that that what we study may not actually end up being what we do for a career. But just like we're already seeing that people have many acts in their career now. Careers evolve,
Yep.
and you may do multiple things. Well, when you need additional learning, additional upskilling, that's where higher education can fit in. And so, yeah, many people are now starting to have less traditional paths through higher education, but also they're coming back more and more. Later in life, it's not only 18 through 24-year-olds anymore. There's a lot of adult learners and people who are coming back because they're making a change in their career. And so higher ed has to expand their view of what a college experience is.
I think that is so wise. And I would love to see that because I think it's wonderful to have many iterations of your career and people change and they decide they want to do
Yeah.
different things. And so I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So if we can make it an on-demand service, whenever I need to learn something, I'm coming back to my alma mater. And so it's a lifelong relationship, not just a 4-year relationship.
That's something to think about. I know that's very interesting. I want to wrap up with some rapid fire questions to have fun and for my
Sure.
audience to get to know you. Does that sound good, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Shoot.
All right. So you are stuck on an island. You have access to water, but you can bring one food and one drink. What are they?
Boy, one food I'd have to go with, and this is not healthy, so I hope my wife is not listening, but I would go with Jelly Bellies,
Ah, okay.
like jelly beans. Like you have to have jelly beans to get through the day. So that was the one food. What was the other
And one
one?
drink.
The other one drink. Yeah, I would probably have to go with Coke.
Okay.
So Coke and jelly beans. Yeah, I'm not going to be very healthy on the island, but yeah.
All right. Sounds good. What is the best music or band of all time?
Well, that's a pretty easy one. That's got to be you too.
Hmm.
So I give away my age. I'm a kid of the '80s, so I think most of us who are Gen Xers would probably go with you too.
What is your most embarrassing work moment?
Oh man, most embarrassing work moment. You stumped me on that one. Let me think here. You know, I let's come back to that one.
That's
I
okay.
don't have an
And
answer
some
for that
people
one.
don't get embarrassed. Like I find people either
Yeah,
respond to that really quickly or they're just,
yeah.
running their mind going, okay, I don't
I embarrass myself every day.
see that's
Like,
that's healthy because then you just laugh at yourself and you don't really care, so you don't remember. What is one tool or resource you use to get through COVID for personal development?
so I did a lot of LinkedIn learning.
Okay,
That
nice.
was mine. It was quick and easy, and I liked that I could kind of do a little nibble here and a little nibble there of different topics.
Amazing. If you had $1 billion, what would you do with it first?
I with $1 billion, I would. So I like building things. So I would be starting companies. I would be building things, and I would be solving more problems around higher education for sure.
Love that. And if you could have lunch with anybody dead or alive, who would it be?
Right now, and this is probably you probably get this a lot right now. Right now, I would say Elon Musk because I just really like to ask what's going on with him. Like he seems all over the place. Like I'd be like, Elon, what's the deal here?
Yeah, yeah, he's shopping. He's on a shopping spree.
Yeah, yeah,
All
he's
right.
all over the place.
That's a good one. All right. So, if our listeners and viewers want to connect with you or learn more about Campus Logic, where can they do that?
So CampusLogic.com is a great place. You can also find us on Twitter at CampusLogic is their handle. CS Chumley is my handle if you're interested in that, and I try to share things about student financial success.
Well, awesome. Well, I really enjoyed getting to know you and your whole team at Campus Logic. I want to thank you for being on the Modern Customer Podcast. For our listeners, if you have a moment, head over to Apple iTunes to leave me a review so more people can find the Modern Customer Podcast. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.